So we are live, okay? All right. So my name is Lorenzo Fitzgerald. Right now, I am interviewing Nate Kellogg. He's our director of personalized learning at Renew Charter Schools in New Orleans. How are you, Nate?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I am fine. I am fine. Just kind of getting things going after work and just trying to stay on top of things. But I first want to say I appreciate you for agreeing to this interview, and let's go ahead and jump right in.
All right.
Right now, Nate, we're focusing on technology and how it's being used in our personal and our professional lives. And I wanted to ask you a few questions regarding that. And my first question would be, how has technology improved since you started your current role at Renew, and how have you changed with it, or what changes have you made along with it?
Yeah, so I think in professionally with Renew, I think the biggest change we've seen is in Google Apps for Education and how we've used it has expanded. I think the features, especially with a program like Google Classroom, have developed quite a bit in the past 3 years, and then with that, a lot of back end systems. So things like Clever, which is a tool that allows us to connect our rosters with all the tools that we use that make it much easier for us to get students logged in efficiently to the programs that they use. So that's where I've seen a lot of that. I think that personally, most of it's been in the sort of smart home movement. I think is that there's a lot of changes to, using the Google Assistant. I now talk to my phone a lot more than I did a few years ago, but I think educationally, that's the biggest piece. Less about the actual software that's in front of students and more about those back end systems.
Okay, and I like the answer, and I'm just kind of roll into my next question, and you kind of touched on it, but I just kind of like you elaborate a little bit more, and that will be how have you used technology to serve people in both your professional and personal life? So you touched a little bit on the professional, maybe kind of get in on a little bit on personal.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think the big thing with serving people is the first thing that comes to mind is access. For the largest change, and I don't know if it's been the past 3 years, but probably 5 or 10 years maybe, but was the price of Chromebooks coming down in such a dramatic way that we have access for adults and kids in all of our buildings to be able to have nearly 1-to-1 for every kid. We're close to that. We're there for 5-8, but 2-to-1 with the lower grades. But also access in terms of allowing adults to be able to the adults that I'm here to serve, that I'm working with, the teachers, to be able to access materials, to be able to access the resources that help them to be successful in class at any time in whatever format that is best for them. So I've used it to create websites and various repositories of resources to be able to share broadly for all 600 adults that we have in our organization, and ensure that they have access all the time. I think the other way that I think about it is a lot with, in terms of what I've benefited from, is the collaboration that's available, especially with tools like and Slack, which allow me to communicate with people beyond even just the city, and to be able to have my personal development, my learning to be continuing all the time, because I'm able to connect with people all around the world.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. Connecting with people around the world. I used Slack in my last class, and it was very helpful with the polls and everything. I didn't even know you can
Mm.
do all that stuff on there. So, absolutely. Okay, now I want to jump into our last question.
Hmm.
Now this one's going to kind of challenge you a little bit as far as things that have worked and that hasn't worked. So, what are some failures that you've experienced while implementing new technology, and how did you overcome this?
Yeah, where to begin? A lot of failures with all this. I think the largest challenge initially was the buy-in, having people were sold a silver bullet for education in the technology they got, and when it turned out to not be a silver bullet, um, people let down and sort of saying, "Well, why should I use this now?" Right? And understandably so. So I think a lot of it for me has been focusing around how do we create buy-in, but also giving people voice in what that how the use of technology is developed, and giving voice to teachers and listening to teachers and trying to empower them to have more of a role in deciding what we're using. I think the largest failure I've had is in terms of broad implementation, is the just, I mean, broadly speaking, in the use of technology, in the amount that we're using it and where we're using it. So and a lot of that has been, I think, two pieces. One is the not understanding where people are. So people are in a variety of places. Educators might be learning the basics of classroom management. They might be working on content development. If they're not in a position to benefit from that development, then technology is only hurting them, and it's not a priority. One of the things that we did to try to this year was to create a competency-based professional development model. So supporting teachers, saying we need to create a floor where everybody's able to do a certain low level of basic skills around our Google Apps for Education, since that's what we use. But then pushing teachers and giving them a map, so to speak, of how to continue their development, and the ones who are advanced to really push them. The ones who already have the basics to say, when you're ready, here's what the next step is, and try to be more responsive to the differentiated needs that people have coming into our schools, which hasn't necessarily been a huge success either, but has tried to be an alternative to what we've done in the past.
So Nate, if any other closing words you want to give for me or the class or anything?
I don't think so. I was just excited. I humbled you to ask, and I appreciate you asking these questions. It's exciting to chat about it.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Nate Kellogg, Director of Personalized Learning with Renew Charter Schools here in New Orleans. I'm Lorenzo Fitzgerald. I'm going to sign off, and see you later.